yeah.
In Dr. Bayot is in Austin, Texas?
Houston.
No, Houston.
Houston.
Oh, you're a Houston man. All right. Is Houston getting better? And
I am not a Houston man. Dr. Bayot is a Houston man.
oh, where are you from, Mr. Fasci?
Fashion? No, Faris.
Faris.
Like yeah, you can say Ferris, like Paris.
I mean, but all right.
I'm in the Austin area.
Oh, you're Austin too. Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Bayat has a lot more hair than I do.
I have nothing.
Wow.
Well, Mr. Jabiri, are you ready?
Yeah. You go turn
Well,
off.
we have a couple of minutes, so we can wait, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering where we're all from, friends. So Canada, US, someone, a dear friend just private messaged me that they're from Iran. Oh my goodness, how wonderful that they could join.
New Mexico.
New Mexico, UK.
I'm from London, Ontario.
London, Ontario. Where else are we? Oops, sorry.
Oregon.
actually we had one person from
New
Guam.
New Mexico.
Wilmette, Illinois.
Oh, wow. I used to live in Illinois, Champaign-Urbana.
Yes, yes.
And I see one from Germany.
Oh, Germany, Deutschland. Hey,
What part of Germany?
Southwest, near Black Forest, Switzerland.
Oh, that's a beautiful part of Germany.
Yeah.
I sing for a German choir now, so I'm studying German.
Oh, great.
Ontario.
Bendito es el sitio y la casa y el lugar y la ciudad y el corazón y la montaña y el refugio y la cueva y el valle y la tierra y el mar y la isla y la pradera donde se ha hecho mención de Dios y se ha glorificado su alabanza. Bendito es el sitio y la casa y el lugar y la ciudad y el corazón y la montaña y el refugio y la cueva y el valle y la tierra y el mar y la isla y la pradera donde se ha hecho mención de Dios y se ha glorificado su alabanza.
Behold a candle, how it gives its light, it weeps its life away, drop by drop to give its flame. You must die to the world and so be born again and enter to the kingdom of heaven. Look at me, follow me, be as I am. Abdu'l-Bahá, Abdu'l-Bahá. You are the angels, if your feet be firm, be steadfast as a rock that no earthly storm can move. And as you have faith, so shall your powers be. And know that till the end, I'm always with you. Look at me, follow me, be as I am. Abdu'l-Bahá, Abdu'l-Bahá. Love mankind, follow me, be as I am. Abdu'l-Bahá, Abdu'l-Bahá. And how I long to travel the world in utmost poverty and cry out, Ya Baha, God willing you may do this for me. Teach the cause, follow me, be as I am. Abdu'l-Bahá, Abdu'l-Bahá. Serve mankind, follow me, be as I am. Abdu'l-Bahá, Abdu'l-Bahá. Look at me, follow me, be as I am. Abdu'l-Bahá, Abdu'l-Bahá, Abdu'l-Bahá.
Thank you very much. Aloha, friends. Welcome to the second session of this day for the Bluebonnet Conference. We're so happy you could come back. Hopefully everyone is rested. We got a little bit of respite. It's so hard to sit in front of Zoom all day. We get all zoomed out from time to time, but under the circumstances, this is how we can actually be together. So what we're saying earlier, where everyone is from, and this is so amazing. We have folks today with us from Germany, from UK, from Canada, from United States, from Iran. We're so happy that you could be here for this part of the conference. I wanted to introduce Dr. Jenna Khodem, who is our speaker, and just to remind us all, if please, any questions you have for Dr. Khodem, to please post it in chat, and then we will go through them. And at the end of her presentation, we'll try to pose some questions to her. And we're so excited that she's here with us. She's going to talk about Abdu'l-Bahá, the Sheltering Branch. How lovely is that title? And just a few things about Dr. Khodadad that everyone knows. She obtained her master's degree and doctorate in biological sciences from Northwestern University. She is very well known in her field and is published in many scientific books and journals, made presentations in scientific forums, nationally and internationally. Her most recent book, The Dynamics of Growth, Scientific Principles That Work in the Worldwide Advancement of the Baha'i Faith, was published by George Ronald Publishers, and it probes the question of growth and advancement of the Baha'i faith through application of scientific analogies and metaphors. She is currently engaged in furthering the development of discourse on the harmony of science and religion, especially concerning the biotechnologies of genetic engineering and cloning. Jenna lives with her husband, Manucher Khodadad, in Highland Park, which is a suburb of Chicago. Dr. Khodadad, I am sorry I keep calling you Dr. Khodam because I know of that relationship. So nice to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Khotan, for this introduction. Thank you. So you're wondering what is a scientist doing in this kind of a forum, but I think it's all related.
It is all related. We're so happy that a scientist is in this kind of forum, and we look forward to your insights and wisdoms. Thank you very much.
So can I start my screen?
Yes. Please, you're welcome to share your screen.
Okay. Let me see if I can get a good start on that. Bye. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay. The title of this talk is Abdu'l-Bahá, the Sheltering Branch. November 28, 2021 marks the centenary of the ascension of Abdu'l-Bahá. His ascension closed the last chapter of the heroic age and opened the formative age to advance in time toward the golden age of Baha'i dispensation. My tongue falters in offering a befitting homage to Abdu'l-Bahá. I wish to place the main focus of this talk within the time allotted to me on the two most outstanding missions of the ministry of Abdu'l-Bahá. One, the laying to rest the sacred remains of the Ba in the heart of Mount Carmel, and second, the growth and development of Baha'i faith in the West. Abdu'l-Bahá, the center of the covenant of Baha'u'llah, is the successor to the manifestation himself. The appointment of Abdu'l-Bahá as the center of covenant was 9 days after the ascension of Baha'u'llah on May 29, 1892, when the will and testament of Abdu'l-Bahá were unsealed, 9 days after May 29. This presentation, Abdu'l-Bahá, the Sheltering Branch, will be accompanied throughout with PowerPoint slides. These add focus and clarity and also provide the sources of the sacred text used throughout this talk. Among the attributes of Abdu'l-Bahá are humility and selflessness. When Abdu'l-Bahá Baha'is insisted from Abdu'l-Bahá that he designate a day to honor him, the center of the covenant, who had never sought name or fame and who had refused repeatedly to have himself glorified, selected the 26th of November, known as the Day of Covenant, as that day. Abdu'l-Bahā's selflessness and humility before the divine threshold of Baha'u'llah are expressed in the tablet known as the Tablet of Visitation of Abdu'l-Bahá. Through these verses, O God, my God, lowly and tearful, I raise my suppliant hands to thee and cover my face in the dust of that threshold of thine, exalted above the knowledge of the learned and the praise of all that glorify thee. Give me to drink from the chalice of selflessness. With its robe, clothe me, and in its ocean, immerse me. Make me as a dust in the pathway of thy loved ones, and grant that I may offer up my soul for the earth ennobled by thy chosen ones in thy path. Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the Baha'i faith, writes, Abdu'l-Bahá was the incarnation of every Baha'i virtue and the embodiment of every Baha'i ideal. The station of Abdu'l-Bahá will forever remain a mystery. Though we cannot fathom that mystery, we can meditate on few facets of his glorious ministry. When we reflect on the person of Abdu'l-Bahá, what comes to mind are gentleness, immense love, nurturing, and sheltering. Abdu'l-Bahá holds the title of branch. Sheltering was the essence of his life and ministry, hence the title of this talk. He was a solace to all, a refuge to the downtrodden, a comforter of the sick and the grieved, the father of the orphan, the poor and the needy, the nurturer of Baha'i administration, and a shelter to all. His successorship to Baha'u'llah assured the continuing downpouring of divine grace to humanity. Humankind has been graced with 48 years of uninterrupted revelation through the twin manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah. 48 years of divine revelation through the manifestations, the Bab and Baha'u'llah, from 1844 to 1892. This period of 48 years of divine revelation, inaugurated by the Bab, continued with the revelation of Baha'u'llah in stages, from the stage of intimation of divine summons to him in the Siachal in Tehran, to the declaration of his mission in the Garden of Rizwan in Baghdad, and reaching its zenith with his proclamation to the kings, rulers, and the ecclesiastical leaders of his time, starting in Constantinople and continuing on in Adrianople and Akka, where he had been banished and imprisoned. Revelation streamed forth until the end of Baha'u'llah's earthly life in 1892. Through the ministry of Abdu'l-Bahá, humankind has been favored with continuing downpouring of divine grace through the center of covenant. The Book of My Covenant was designated by Baha'u'llah as his most great tablet. The Book of My Covenant was written in Baha'u'llah's handwriting and unsealed on the 9th day after his ascension. The Book of My Covenant is a document divinely ordained, organically linked with Baha'u'llah, and infused with undisputable authority. Baha'u'llah designated Abdu'l-Bahá, the most great branch, as the center of his covenant, to whom all shall turn. The one whom God had purposed, who had branched from this pre-existent root. Few distinctive features of Baha'u'llah's covenant are the pivot of the oneness of mankind, the lamp, the light of the world, the heat of the sun which quickened and promoted the development of all created things. To Abdu'l-Bahá, the center of that covenant, a number of titles apply. The Master, the center of Baha'u'llah's covenant, the mystery of God's Sirrullah, the perfect exemplar, the interpreter of his holy writ, the limb of the law of God. He who had this ancient root, the most great branch, the great branch, the most mighty branch, the branch of holiness, the shelter for all mankind. Abdu'l-Bahá holds the title of branch. A number of biblical prophecies specifically refer to branch. The branch from the divine low tree. The divine low tree is in reference to Jesse, the father of King David. Baha'u'llah's lineage is derived from that root. Abdu'l-Bahá, the most great branch, the branch of holiness, the most exalted branch, is the fulfillment of those prophecies. The title branch relates to a number of biblical prophecies. Its fulfillment is the person of Abdu'l-Bahá. Isaiah 4 verse 2 tells that in that day shall the branch of the Lord be beautiful and glorious. Again, Isaiah 11:1, and there shall come forth a rod from the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots. And then prophet Zechariah. Behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Here reference is made to the entombment of the sacred remains of the Bab, Rabbi Allah, the exalted Lord, by the man whose name is the branch, Abdu'l-Bahá. And then again, few verses down, Zechariah continues in verse 15. And they that are far off shall come and build in the temple of the Lord. These two verses from Zechariah relate to the interment in the heart of Mount Carmel by Abdu'l-Bahá, the branch of the sacred remains of the Bab, the Lord, Rabbi Allah, the exalted Lord, the very foundation for the shrine of the Bab. And that many from far off across the world participated in the building of the temple of the Lord. These are only few biblical prophecies about the advent of the branch and the laying to rest the sacred remains of the Bab in the heart of Mount Carmel by the blessed hands of Abdu'l-Bahá. This was indeed one of the most significant acts of the ministry of Abdu'l-Bahá. The removal of the Bab's remains from the place of concealment in Tehran to Mount Carmel, the safe transfer of these remains, the construction of a befitting mausoleum to receive them, and their final interment with his own hands in their permanent resting place, constituted one of the three principal objectives which ever since the inception of his mission he had conceived it his paramount duty to achieve. This rank as one of the outstanding events in the first Baha'í century. The transfer of the sacred remains of the Bab. Shown on this rather detailed, not quite as detailed as it could be, diagram. The sources of my information include God Passes By, and also the book written by Mr. Abul Qasim Aflan, a former custodian of the Baha'í, the House of Bab. The book is called ABDU'L-Bahá Zindegani Hazrat Bab, published by One Word. It's a remarkable book, and he traces the movement of the sacred remains of the Bab very accurately, and that's where my information, most of my information has come. The mangled bodies of the Bab and his fellow martyr, Mirza Muhammad Ali, Anis, were removed in the middle of the second night following their execution through the pious intervention of Haji Suleiman Khan from the edge of the moat outside the city of Tabriz, where they had been cast, to a silk factory owned by one of the believers of Milan, and were laid the next day in a wooden casket, and thence carried to a place of safety. Subsequently, according to instruction from Baha'u'llah in 1850, they were transported to Tehran and placed in the shrine of Imamzadeh Hassan. They were later removed to the residence of Haji Suleiman Khan himself in that city, and from his house were taken to Imamzadeh Masum, where they remained concealed until the year 1867 to 1868, for 18 years since the execution, the martyrdom of the Bab. That time when tablet was revealed from Adrianople in 1868, directing Ali Akbari Shahmizadi and Jamal Burujerdi to transfer them without delay to some other spot, an instruction which, in view of the subsequent reconstruction of the shrine of Imamzadeh Masum, proved to have been providential. The remains then were transferred from the shrine of Imamzadeh Masum to Masjid Mashallah, and to also a number of other sites, and also in Isfahan and a number of other sites. It was removed, the sacred remains were removed in 1899 under the direction from Abdu'l-Bahá. Now this is almost 49 years since the martyrdom of the Bab. They were transferred out of Kermanshah and continuing on. I will show that flow from Iran to out of Iran to a number of countries on a schematic map, which I have put together. I'm not a cartologist. So from Tabriz to Milan, to Tehran in a number of sites, from Tehran through Qom and Kashan to Isfahan, from Isfahan to Kermanshah, and from Kermanshah to Baghdad, from Baghdad to Damascus, from Damascus to Beirut, to Akka, and to Haifa, where they arrived. To summarize it in this next diagram, which is a lot simpler, the sacred remains from MOAT outside the city of Tabriz to Milan, to numerous sites, Tehran, Qom, Kashan, Isfahan, Kermanshah, Baghdad, Damascus, Beirut, Akka, and then Haifa. Arriving in Haifa on January 31, 1899. The interment took place on March 31, 1909 by the blessed hand of Abdu'l-Bahá. Let us visualize that scene so poignantly described by Shoghi Effendi in God Passes By. When all was finished and the earthly remains of the martyr prophet of Shiraz were at long last safely deposited for their everlasting rest in the bosom of God's holy mountain, Abdu'l-Bahá, who had cast aside his turban, removed his shoes, and thrown off his cloak, bent low over the still open sarcophagus, his silver hair waving about his head, and his face transfigured and luminous, rested his forehead on the border of the wooden casket, and sobbing aloud, wept with such a weeping that all those who were present wept with him. That night he could not sleep, so overwhelmed was he with emotion. By a strange coincidence, on that day of Nowruz, a cablegram was received from Chicago announcing that the believers in each of the American centers had elected a delegate and sent to that city and definitely decided on the site and construction of the Masjid al-Aqsa. With transference of the remains of the Bab, whose advent marks the return of the prophet Elijah to Mount Carmel, and their interment in that city, in that holy mountain, not far from the cave of prophet Elijah himself, that biblical prophecy was fulfilled. Abdu'l-Bahá announced this joyous tiding. The luminous body of the Bab, after having for 60 years been transferred from place to place, has been ceremoniously deposited on the day of Nowruz within the sacred casket in the exalted shrine of Mount Carmel. With this signal task fulfilled, Abdu'l-Bahá set out for the West. He arose with sublime courage, confidence, and resolution to set out on 3 years of travel to the West, first to Egypt, then to Europe, and later to North America, and back to Europe for a second time, bringing about a turning point of utmost significance. An extraordinary impetus to the international expansion of Baha'i faith. As the appointed center of Baha'u'llah's covenant, Abdu'l-Bahá had been the successor of the manifestation of God himself, a position which, according to the guardian of our faith, was to empower him to impart an extraordinary impetus to the international expansion of the Baha'i faith. The establishment of Baha'i faith in the Western Hemisphere. When Abdu'l-Bahá set out for the West, it was a perilous juncture in history. In 1900, the International Court of Justice had come into being. In 1899 and 1907, 2 massive peace conferences had assembled to discuss disarmament. In 1907, the Hague Convention met. The Balkans were at unrest. On May 1912, Italy attacked the Ottoman Empire. The extensive Ottoman Empire was in the throes of the last stages of its precipitous decline. Several European empires had already collapsed. Europe was at the brink of World War, only 2 years away. And such was the condition of Europe. On another front, time-honored values were being eroded. Basic values on the individual, God, religion, and civilization were being questioned. The value of the individual, with the thoughts of Sigmund Freud and his materialistic assumptions, and Nietzsche in The Will to Power, and his thoughts and his philosophy. He called for a declaration of war by higher men on the masses. Belief in God. Nietzsche proclaimed distinctly in Thus Spake Zarathustra, God is dead. Religion. Nietzsche proclaimed religion pure fiction. And civilization essentially is material, no spiritual component. And history, a dismal view of history, with no purpose, no outcome, no guidance. It was such a time that Abdu'l-Bahá set out for the West. In his talks lectures and interactions, he addressed these values and inspired a spiritual perception. Abdu'l-Bahā's first visit to Egypt and to Europe. On September 1911, Abdu'l-Bahā sailed for Egypt, sojourned a month in Port Said. Due to his health, he had to postpone his voyage, went to Alexandria. And on August 1911, he sailed towards Europe, toward Marseille, Tonon, London, Bristol, Paris, Marseille again, and then after 4 months, he set back towards Alexandria, arriving in Alexandria on December 11, 1911. Having traveled this extent in rather poor health, 4 months later, after his return from Europe, Abdu'l-Bahā set out for North America. The establishment of Baha'i faith in North America. This North American nation had been addressed by Baha'u'llah in the Most Holy Book as the Great Republic of the West. When Abdu'l-Bahā set out for North America, times were critical. It was a critical point in history. Of course, it was a critical juncture in history and only 2 years away before the outbreak of the First World War. Abdu'l-Bahā set out for America, North America. He sailed from Alexandria on March 5, 1912, toward North America on steamship Celtic via Naples, arriving in New York April 11, 1912. On his first day in New York, Abdu'l-Bahā addressed the assembled friends. This long journey will prove how great is my love for you. There were many troubles and vicissitudes, but in the thought of meeting with you, all these things vanished and were forgotten. Abdu'l-Bahā's travels extensively in North America. He traveled in the Northeast and towards the West, and he traveled extensively in the Northeast. The account of his travels through the Northeast, very moving, as are the accounts of his travels throughout North America. He traveled also to Canada, Montreal, and back to Northeast. And then he set out towards the West. The Midwest, the West. There are many accounts, highlights, along the course of his travels through Midwest, Southwest, and West. A closer look at this region. Kenosha, Chicago, Kenosha, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Omaha, Lincoln, Nebraska, Denver, Glenwood Springs, Salt Lake City, Sacramento, Oakland, San Francisco, and then he traveled down to Los Angeles in order to pay his respects to the grave of Thornton Chase, the first American believer. Abdu'l-Bahā traveled across North America. They took this path back to the Northeast. He had traveled from coast to coast over 5,000 miles under very difficult and strenuous conditions. In America, he had addressed universities, peace societies, congregations, secretaries of states, congressmen, ambassadors, rabbis, churchmen, other people of eminence, Alexander Graham Bell, Mrs. William Jennings Bryan, Rabindranath Tagore, Andrew Carnegie, Mr. Roosevelt, Admiral Perry. The coverage of his travels and discourse has inspired and elicited many volumes. And then, after 239 days, Abdu'l-Bahá departed from North America, December 5, 1912. He left his continent, leaving many heartbroken and forlorn. The words of Abdu'l-Bahá on Steamship Celtic departing New York City. This is my last interview with you, and now I am on this ship to sail away. My last exhortation to you is this: exert yourselves with your heart and soul so that perchance through your efforts, the light of universal peace may shine and the darkness of estrangement and enmity be dispelled from amongst men. And to this I call you. Abdu'l-Bahá, the sheltering branch, continued to nurture the North American Baha'i communities through his love and guidance. And this is his last tablet to the Baha'is of America. Be assured that the confirmation of the Abha kingdom will continually reach you. Through the power of the divine springtime, the development of the celestial clouds, and the heat of the sun of reality, the tree of life is just beginning to grow. Before long, it will produce buds, bring forth leaves and fruits, and cast its shade over the east and the west. This tree of life is the book of covenant. Before leaving our focus on North America, it is fitting to pay tribute to and honor several individuals as named by Shawi Effendi in God Passes By, who were closely associated with the first stirring development of the American Baha'i community. Isabella Britton, Thornton Chase, Paul Dealey, Arthur Dodge, Louisa Moore, Getzinger, Edward Getzinger, Helen Goodall, Lillian Cabot, Howard McNutt, Chester Thatcher, Robert Turner. Abdu'l-Bahā's departure from North America on December 5, 1912, on steamship Celtic toward Europe, arriving in Liverpool on December 13, 1912. This was Abdu'l-Bahā's second visit to Europe, taking this course from Liverpool on, visiting many cities and capitals of Europe, Bristol, then to London, Edinburgh, Stuttgart, Paris, Vienna, Budapest, and Marseille, almost a whole year practically. And then he left Europe and back to Haifa, arriving in Haifa on December 5, 1913. And this was only a few months before the World War broke out. Reflecting on the development of the Baha'i faith in the West, we bring to mind the call to the people of the West by the Pope. In the Qayyum al-Asma, issue forth from their cities to aid his cause and become as brethren in his one and indivisible religion. And from Baha'u'llah, should they attempt to conceal its light on the continent, it will assuredly rear its head in the midmost heart of the ocean and raising its voice, proclaim, I am the life giver of the world. And from Abdu'l-Bahá, from the beginning of time, the light of divine revelation had risen from the east and shed its radiance upon the West. The illumination thus shed had, however, acquired in the West an extraordinary brilliancy. The day is approaching when you shall witness how, through the splendor of the faith of Baha'u'llah, the West will have replaced the East, radiating that light with greater brilliance. After his return from Europe, Abdu'l-Bahá continued his nurturing, his guidance, his continuing guidance through the tablets of the Divine Plan, the Charter for the Growth of Baha'i Faith in the years 1916 and 1917. There were 14 tablets, and they were sent on postcards. It was during the First World War. They were unveiled after the end of the World War. They were unveiled in 1919, April 26th to April 30th, at the 10th annual Mashriq al-Asqar Convention. And Abdu'l-Bahá had asked this gathering to be designated as the Convention of the Covenant. It was a magnificent banquet. You can read the account of that in Star of the West. It was a magnificent banquet with music of harp, eloquent talks, and poetry. Under the unfolding stages of the divine plan of Abdu'l-Bahá, we have become a worldwide community under the banner of the 10-year global crusade. The 10-year international teaching and consolidation plan of the beloved guardian, Shoaib Effendi, we have become worldwide in 1963, a bare century since the announcement of Baha'u'llah of his mission. And we can look at the unfolding stages of the divine plan. Those launched by Shoaib Effendi, the first 7-year plan, the second 7-year plan, the Africa plan, the 10-year global crusade, and those launched by the Universal House of Justice, the 9-year plan, the 5-year plan, the 7-year plan, the 6-year plan, the 3-year plan, the 4-year plan, the 1-year plan, the first 5-year plan, the second 5-year plan, the third 5-year plan, and the fourth 5-year plan, culminating on that signal date, the centenary of the formative age. A landmark for continuing next phases in the unfoldment of the divine plan. At this point in this presentation, I have moved to conclude my presentation by sharing with this audience few verses from a poem composed by Joseph Hannen for the occasion of the unveiling of the divine plan in 1919. Just few verses. The Call, Joseph Hannen. O ye heralds of the golden age, promise of prophets, dream of every sage. The Master calls you. Rise ye up and go to spread the news that all the world may know. O islands of the east and western sea, thou too rejoice, the truth shall come to thee. A host of heralds from the Lord of Lords, thy glad deliverance from bonds of war. Thy great new charter of the world are read. The word hath spoken. Now thy feet must tread. From north to south, from east to west, the word, till far and near, his banner is unfurled. Those heralds of the golden age went out and conquered. These days, heralds of the golden age march in their footsteps toward the advancement of the plan of Abdu'l-Bahá, toward the advancement and growth of the Baha'i world community. toward the golden age of Baha'i dispensation.
Thank you so much, Jenna John. That was so wonderful. What a journey to go along with you on this very blessed trip that the beloved master took. There were so many gifts from his trip to the West, one of which was that we didn't have many photographs of him before he came to the West, except when he was younger. I personally have seen only a couple photos. There's one with his brother when he was in his 20s, and there's one of him seated. I assume that's a passport photo. But beyond that, most of the photos, if not all, are from his visit to the West. Had he not come, we would not have had any of these beautiful photos that we love.
Thank you, Rotan. And I want to thank all those in attendance for giving me this opportunity and for their patience. Thank you.
It's so lovely. Thank you very, very much. I wonder if there are any questions for Jenna John, if you have any questions for her. In your studies, following the footsteps of the master, what do you think are some of the effects of his visit to the West? Clearly, he went across the country from the East to Central to West and then back, visiting, encouraging, planting the seeds of communities, helping the friends. What did you find most surprising in your research?
Well, what I found most surprising was about his energy, his love, his stamina, and his all-inclusive love, which reached individuals. It brought transformation to many. And I could go on, but you know that these are written, the records of his love and the change he brought in individuals are written abundantly.
Yes. But I'm just wondering, so his energy, because he was 67 when he left Palestine?
He was 60 and 67 in those times was equivalent to 87 perhaps.
It's shocking to think, he was 67 and he got on a boat, right? He had to start this very long journey. And as you were reading, it showed his love for us. So, but yet you say he had a lot of energy because he was on a mission to the West. He knew he had to come.
Yes. Well, and he did from time to time make statements which indicated that he was truly exhausted. But then he continued on.
Yes. Oh, it's wonderful. About the laying of the sacred remains of the Bab, I think we know of the event, but I don't know if we understand the importance of this event. And you're saying that this is actually, this is a fulfillment of prophecy, is what I'm hearing you say. Is that correct?
Yes, these are not what I'm saying. These are taken in some cases verbatim from God passes by. So it's not a claim I'm making.
Yes.
But yes, it was the fulfillment of the prophet Elijah coming back to the Holy Land and being buried very close to that site. And it's the fulfillment of those prophecies of the Bible, which I have shared in my presentation.
Yes, very clearly. And just it's that whole scene of him taking off his turban, kneeling beside the open sarcophagus, putting his head on the side and weeping is just so emotional, and it's very moving. We don't imagine him in that state often.
Yes, it's so moving. Just reading through that passage. I had to read it several times before I could read it with a steady voice.
Yes.
And the experience of for him to remember the Bab from the early days and then the transfer of his remains over so many sites. What a precious gift we now have.
Absolutely.
We have the sacred remains of the Bab. What happened to the sacred remains of Jesus Christ Of course, I know what is the explanation for that, but this is such a precious, precious gift. And in this book, which I mentioned by Mr. Afnan, it is really remarkable because it is actually written by Abul Qasim Afnan, who himself was a custodian of the House of Bab in Shiraz for some time. So his scholarly work and his research indicates that it really was such a complex and difficult process to do this, especially in transporting the sacred remains out of Iran. But they succeeded with God's assistance and blessings. And now Shrine of the Bab.
Amazing. And now Abdu'l-Bahá's shrine, of course, being next to the Shrine of the Bab temporarily, and then this year it's going to be finally laid to rest in his permanent resting place. So it's so interesting that it echoes in some way the story that you were sharing with us about the interment of his responsibility of interment of the Bab, his remains. Yeah, it's wonderful. And just one last question for you. You know, we're thinking about, it was wonderful to hear Dr. Stockman's presentation earlier about how Abdu'l-Bahá guided the Persian community and really built the Baha'i Persian community. He also did the same thing for the American community in terms of direction, guidance. Even the speeches that he gave are perfect examples of how to teach in the West, how to, right?
Yes, and the European community. Yes. I mean, those travels to Europe for that length of time, twice, once 4 months and the second time the whole year, have left so many impressions, so many writings, so many documents. It will take months and months to truly study those and perceive their significance.
Yes, so much more to explore. Thank you so much, Dr. Khodada. This is such a treat. There's so many other questions to ask as well. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to post it. And we just want to thank you from our heart. This was such a deeply spiritual journey you took us on. It was so moving and so beautiful. Thank you very much. We're so grateful to you. And Faris John, here you are. Is there anything you would like to add before we move over to the music session? Maybe we could talk about the contribution that, if anyone is interested in, to the Shrine of Abdu'l-Bahá for its building and or maintenance. Go ahead, Faris John.
Well, foremost, I have to really offer our levels of gratitude to Dr. Jana Khadem for such a moving and heartfelt presentation. At points, you brought us all to tears, Jana Khanum. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Especially the scene about when Abdu'l-Bahá is at the time of interment of the remains of the Bab, when he takes his head cover off and puts his forehead on the edge of the box that is containing the remains of the Bab, and he sobs and everybody starts crying. To me, that reminds me of the days of solitude that the Bab had at the mountains, the dark mountains of Azerbaijan, in the fortress of Maku and Chehri. When he says in one of his tablets to the Shah, he says he didn't have light. His companions were 2 guards and 4 dogs. And it's those days that he says, is there any remover of difficulties save God? Say, praise be God. When it just shows the solitude of the Bab. And then, I mean, I can't help but to associate the feelings that Abdu'l-Bahá had at the point of interring the remains of the Bab, about the situation the Bab was in those days. It's just so moving and heartfelt. We have one lady who has raised her hand. I think she has a question.
Yes.
But I don't see the hand anymore.
Oh, I asked her directly if she could please put it in chat so we could see it. I think it was Susan John.
Okay, well, we don't have any other questions, but if she wants to actually pose a question, please go ahead. Please do not add to the presentation. The session belongs to Dr. Khadem. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
I do have a comment to add that
Please.
the symbolism of placing the plaster from Maku under the tile of the shrine, of the dome of Shrine of the Bab.
Yes.
That symbolism is very moving. From Maku, the dark of Maku, to the Shrine of the Bab, from the darkness of one candle to the Shrine of the Bab, which is flooded with
Yes,
light,
with light.
light upon light.
There are a couple of comments, but one person says we cannot write on the chat. It is not allowed. Our technical people, is that true? Mr. Jaberi?
Yes, it's true.
لطفاً اجازه بدین اگه میتونن اجازه بدین روی چت بتونن سوالاشون رو بنویسن. بازار.
Do you want to write to everybody?
No, I want everybody to be able to write to us.
Okay, they can do it.
Okay. Yeah, I did get a couple of chats, but one person thought that we cannot. You should be able to actually write in the chat. From Quanta Dawn, you can write in the chat. You should be able to.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, we have some time before it's time for the music session. Please, if you have questions, go ahead, please. I'm going to give a couple of minutes for anybody who might have questions from Dr. Khadem, please.
It's coming. Let me just read one. This is from Quanta Dawn Light. What can the Baha'i world community do to reflect the light of Baha'u'llah with all the symbolism expressed by the presenters? Oh, Jana Jan, this is such an interesting question. So around symbolism and spreading of the light, reflecting the light of Baha'u'llah.
You know, that question leaves wide open an extensive discussion. I don't want to take the time here, but I think the answer is known to all of us, what we can do toward the advancement and growth of Baha'i faith. We really need to grow much faster and deeper than at the present time. And so the plans of the House of Justice direct us for carrying that out. But I've always been impatient since my childhood. That growth in relationship, in respect to what the Baha'i faith has to offer, our growth has been very slow. And then as a child, I could not understand it. As a teenager, I could not understand it. As an adult, I still can't understand why we are not growing faster than this. Mm-hmm. But then that's where those metaphors and scientific analogies that have obsessed me come into this logic.
Is there anyone you would like to share with the friends today around some of these scientific symbolisms that might reflect? Because there's this whole process of germination of a seed, a growth of a plant. You can't go from seed to fruit. There is a process that has to take place, right?
There is a process. And one metaphor, which is really not scientific alone, it has a number of implications, is that the development of a butterfly. Mm-hmm. And that only that butterfly can leave its cocoon, its chrysalis, when it's fully mature. And that takes time. Because if it leaves that cocoon like that before the time, before that world order or is developed, then it cannot survive. So that has given me a lot of comfort, knowing that it has to go through the process. And there's also the metaphor of the laser beam. And there are so many, I don't want to go into that discussion because I know time is short. So anyway, there are dozens of analogies and metaphors that have comforted me in these my later years.
Wonderful. So we can Parishan, maybe we could take a few more comments or thoughts. I know some people are trying to raise their hands, but I'm not sure if they can unmute themselves. If you raise your hands, we will unmute you.
Some
Yes.
people are sending messages that they cannot send text messages to everybody. Well, you can. Actually, I just sent a text message, a test message to everybody, and it worked. What you need to do is when you're trying to send a test, go where it says to, rather than having a particular name, there is a drop-down arrow. Drop the arrow down and go all the way to the top. It says to everyone. You can select everyone, and then you send your message, everybody receives it. However, Khotan John, you're the MC. If there is no other comments, may I?
There is actually, yes, if you could give us just one moment. I think there's some friends who cannot unmute themselves. If you could kindly electronically raise your hand. Oh, there are two hands up. Let me see. Aghay Jabari, could you please unmute Sua's iPhone, S-U-A. Let's see if Suajan can ask her question. Can you speak to us, Suajan? Let's see if we can hear you. S-U-A''A iPhone.
She must unmute herself.
She must unmute herself. So you're now able to unmute yourself, Suajan. Okay, let's see. It just may take time. Thank you for all of your patience and understanding. Sure. And then the other is Rose from UK. If Mr. Jabari, if she could please be unmuted. بفرمایید لطفاً.
First of all, I'm blown away with dear Jenna's presentation. Was one of the best I ever had. Thank you, Jenna. It was lovely. Secondly, Mr. Faris, you did send a test to everybody only because you're a co-host. Others cannot do. So that's
yeah, I understand that. The test came back to me. We're trying to resolve that. Mr. Jabari, can you remove my co-host, please? Don't make me a co-host for now.
He's giving up his power. So, okay, I think Rose has a question. Go ahead, please.
I just wonder if there is time, if possible, could dear Jenna just introduce her book very quickly, because she has written a wonderful book, which I recommend it to the whole world to read.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful book. If she could, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. بفرمایید Jenna Khanum, about your book.
Thank you. My intent is not to promote my book, but because you asked, the name of the book is The Dynamics of Growth, Scientific Principles at Work in the Worldwide Advancement of Baha'i Faith. And so it's packed with metaphors, such as what I mentioned, laser beam. It requires time to explain that, so I don't want to take the time of this gathering. Another one is the butterfly, and another one is crystal. Another one that's has been very meaningful to me is the process of crystallization. You know, in science, when a substance crystallizes, and when you get a crystal, it's the purest form of that substance. There's nothing more pure than crystal. So if it's not pure, then it's not a crystal. In order for it to crystallize, you need to have reach a point of saturation. You need to have sufficient molecules in order for crystallization to take place. And I see the Baha'i faith, the growth of Baha'i faith, its ultimate goal is crystallization of the Baha'i faith, the world order of Baha'u'llah. So that critical number is not there, which is we don't yet have those numbers. And then, of course, together with that, there are also other conditions and other requirements. But that particular metaphor, the moment I started to actually draw it, all of a sudden had a great meaning to me, greater meaning than just saying, well, this is the science of crystallization. We used to try, and we tried in the lab to crystallize a certain protein in the membrane, and that was my field. And it was not easy to do that, to get it to that pure form and get sufficient amount under appropriate condition to get that pure form. So crystallization of the Baha'i faith ultimately will take place once we have sufficient number of Baha'is and once we have that purity. And when that crystal is formed, that outcome will be a crystal that is pure, symmetrical, and beautiful.
How lovely. Thank you so much. Dr. Khadem, some folks are asking if you could please share a link to the book in chat so that they might be able to look for it. That would be lovely. While you're doing that, we have a direct message from, I apologize, I think it's a gentleman named Hissam. He would like to add that their grandfather was there at the time of the interment of the blessed remains of the Bab. So it's incredible to have that kind of connection. Let's see if we could please unmute, or if you can unmute yourself. Suzanne Jr., please. Yes, Farishtan, did you have?
Mr. Jabari, Ali Jabari, to unmute, please lower the hand of the person who has raised his hand. That unmutes them.
I did.
Let me do that here.
Okay, so let's see if we can get Susan. It says Susan Jr. I want to make sure we give her an opportunity. She's raised her hand twice, so I want to see if we can help her.
I want to thank you so much for Mrs. Jana Khadem and Mr. Friday and Khanum Harun. I just want to thank you so much about my English to per Shrine of Baha'u'llah, which I haven't the first time I just read. I really appreciate that you do it this much more often. The people doesn't know anything about it, so have a hard time to talk English. It's nice. I'm so glad you're always talking about this one in Shrine of Baha'I. And I always wish the best for everyone.
Oh, thank you so much for your lovely blessings for everyone. So let's see if there are not any hands up. There's some beautiful notes in chat where the friends are sharing their appreciation. Please continue to do so. And then we will, I'm going to turn it, let's see, Dawn, Quanta Dawn Light. I don't know your real name, so I'm going to just read that. Go ahead, please. Let's see if we could unmute her.
I think I am unmuted.
You are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
There is a wonderful statement that I really like from Abdu'l-Bahá. It says, intellect is good, but unless it becomes the servant of the heart, it is to no avail. So I'm wondering if we have to balance the focus, also connecting the hearts and cementing them. Perhaps that is what is needed in our efforts to teach the faith.
Thank you very much. Jenna John, please, if there's anything you'd like to respond to that. You are muted, just to if you don't mind unmuting, please.
That is such a profound question. There's just so much to say.
There's so much to say. So we might need to do another session, Faris John, just because this is an ocean. This is an ocean. We are so grateful. Think we are. Let's see. It seems like a gentleman by the name of Hasim has his hand up. We'll take one more comment. If we could please help him unmute, and then we'll move on, just to make sure we're on time for everything. Mr. Hassam, has he been unmuted?
I think this is Dr. Sardari, who did mention his father, his great-grandfather was present at the time of interment of the Bab. What happened was at the same day that the remains of the Bab were being interred, two other events took place in the Baha'i world. One was the first National Convention of the Baha'is of the United States. The same day it's a Nowruz Day, and the second event was that the city of Tabriz in Iran had 18 martyrs that same day, and Abdu'l-Bahá actually revealed 18 tablets, each one in the honor of one of those martyrs in that day. You know, city of Tabriz also had a history of having calamities. During the time of Wahid, there were calamities, and there were actually 3 times that they had to go through calamities, and this was one of them. At the same time, when the interment of the remains of the Bab was completed, and Abdu'l-Bahá was leaving, he was riding on a carriage, a horse-drawn carriage, and as he sat in, there was room for 3 other people. And Abdu'l-Bahá said 3 of the friends can share the ride with me. And they actually, by throwing lots, they chose randomly 3 of the friends, and all 3 turned out to be from the city of Tabriz, the same city that had given the 18 martyrs. So these things happen all at the same time. Mr. Sardari is a descendant of those people, and he is originally from the city of Tabriz, his family. I know him personally. He's a friend of mine. When I lived in Portland, I was at his presence many, many times. And even now when I go to Portland, I'm point of seeing him and his family. So that is the background of Dr. Hessam Sardari. Thank you so much, Mr. Sardari.
How wonderful. Wonderful. And there are questions about possible characteristics or guidelines regarding our readiness to go to the next level of growth. It sounds like Dr. Khadem's book is just perfect for that question. It's all about advancement in the Baha'i faith and just how do we go from one stage to the next. So she has put a link here for anyone who's interested. How lovely. We do have that as an incredible resource. Are there any last thoughts, Jana John? Is there anything you'd like to share from your heart, from your spirit, anything with the friends who gathered here, those that are listening? If there's anything, please.
I just want to thank all of you. It is so wonderful and inspiring to be in your midst. And I'm so very excited about what's happening with this virtual connection with all the Baha'is in the world. And I think every moment, I wish my father were present, he would have been ecstatic to be able to do that. And so during the past year, I have become so close and recognized some gems of this faith worldwide. The awareness of the worldwide spread of Baha'i faith is what I find very awesome. And that in itself is one of the factors that can induce growth. You know, local connections are wonderful, but also the realization that we're part of this magnificent worldwide Baha'i community. Thank you for that.
How beautiful. What lovely words to end this part of the program. Thank you so much from the bottom of our spirits and our hearts for this beautiful presentation. Thank you so much. And yeah, Faris John, I'm going to hand it over to you for the announcement, and then we'll go over to the music. Go ahead.
Right. We have an extra 10 minutes right now. So, dear Jana, I know you and I had a lot of conversations until we got to the point that the whole thing was arranged, and we had the bounty of being able to listen to you. I have known you for years in connection with the Irfan colloquium sessions, and I have always known Dr. Jana Khadem to be probably the most organized speaker that we have ever had. She always is prepared. She has everything ready, her PowerPoint presentation, what she wants to talk about. She is well thought out. In short, she doesn't shoot from the hip. She is prepared. And I, for one, am really, really thankful to you, Jana Khanum, for accepting this. Really, we enjoyed your talk very much. Thank you so much. And then all the other speakers, all the people who are helping with this session. Khotan John, last night you mentioned something from one of the Ruhi books. It was following Dr. Henderson's talk when you talked about the phrase unrelaxing resolve. That's what you mentioned. This reminded me of a piece of history in Texas. As Khotan mentioned last night, Anna Ranki was the first Baha'i in Texas. It was a lady and she gave some details about her history. She actually lived during the time of Abdu'l-Bahá. And it was at that time that Abdu'l-Bahá commissioned Louis Gregory to come to Texas and teach. Anna Ranki, being a woman of Texas, being part of like the southern United States, where prejudice was raving high, she was concerned. And she wrote a letter to Abdu'l-Bahá. Today, when you go to the Baha'i Center of the city of Austin, Texas, you can see the letter of Abdu'l-Bahá on the wall posted, the way she replied to Anna Ranki, and the translation of it into English. The original letter from Abdu'l-Bahá is in his own handwriting in Persian, in Farsi, and the translation in English is posted right next to it. They're both framed. Beautiful, beautiful display of unrelaxing resolve. She was concerned that if a Black person comes to the South and starts teaching, because of the prejudice of the people of the South, they may not accept Mr. Gregory. So she wrote to Abdu'l-Bahá and said, please send somebody else. Send somebody who's white, who's not Black. At that time, 1920, Abdu'l-Bahá writes the tablet back to her and says, Mr. Gregory is like a pot of gold. And you take gold anywhere, there are buyers for it. Even though, as Khotan mentioned last night, Mr. Gregory, because of the color of his skin, didn't have the ability to find a place to sleep and was walking back and forth on two sides of the street, right, Khotan? But when he came here, Abdu'l-Bahá did not relax his resolve. This prejudice had to be removed. And there are more examples of that during the time of Abdu'l-Bahá with the Baha'is of Hamadan and the separation between the Muslim Baha'is and the Jew Baha'is, to the Washington, D.C., and the separation of the feasts of the Black Baha'is and the White Baha'is. This is what unrelaxing resolve meant in the mind of Abdu'l-Bahá. Would not relax the resolve he had to move forward with what Baha'u'llah had taught us to do. Well, I thought maybe that would be a good filler for the next few minutes that we had. We're pretty close to our music session. I just want to make my final announcement. Let me see if there's any many thanks, General Khanum, from everybody to you for the wonderful presentation you made. Thank you so much. As I mentioned this morning, this conference is free of charge. However, we have a mechanism. If you decide that you want to contribute to the Shrine of Abdu'l-Bahá, this is the last year. This is the year of the completion of the shrine. You're welcome to do that. In the text, I'm going to post an address that you can send contributions. If you send checks, make sure it is drawn on a United States banking institution. If it is from Canada or Switzerland or Turkey, we cannot deposit those checks. Please don't send checks. If you like to do that, you can send me an email. We can arrange for fund transfers. But if you can write a check from the institutions that are within the United States, that will go to the World Center towards the Shrine of Abdu'l-Bahá. Last year, this conference was able to contribute over $50,000 to this shrine. We all met in person, and we are hoping that next year we'll also be able to meet you in person, embrace you, and be in your presence other than just Zoom. So with that, I'm going to end my comments, and I'm going to just type my the address that you can send the contributions, and I'll turn the meeting back to you, Khotanja.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that wonderful reminder. So I'm going to now invite Siminjan back to introduce the musical portion of this afternoon. Where is our dear friend Simin Venus?
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. So
here.
if we could, great. If we could please.
With my name. I'm here with my name, not the galaxies.
No more galaxy. You come to Earth.
No, I came down, to listen to Mrs. Khodem. It was just absolutely beautiful. Shooting from the hip. That is a Texan impression, I guess. So that's something I learned. Introducing another friend, another wonderful musician, Mr. Babak Aghassi. He's a maestro. I call him maestro. And he plays piano. He started when he was a junior youth, but he's main talent is his out of this world voice that he has. And he's been trained in classical music. He sings opera and also Persian classical music or موسیقی سنتی ایرانی. But today he will play piano for us. And it's one of his own improvisation. And I invite him to start his playing. Please, Robert. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, friends, today Babak is accompanying me, and we are going to perform 2 songs. One is an old song by Elahe, and this song I think the name of it is به تو هرگز نگفتم من, I never have told you. And the composer of this, the melody for this song is Mr. Ernesto Cortazar, and he's a Mexican composer, but the words are in Farsi. Here we are. به تو هرگز نگفتم من، تو را من دوست می‌دارم، تو هم اصلا نپرسیدی نخواندی از نگاهم راز چشمانم، ندیدی سایه های ماتم دوران هجران را به روی چهره سرد تبالودم. گذشت آن روز شیرین هم، ولی امروز و فردا روز و فرداهای دیگر هم به تو هرگز نخواهم گفت، تو را من دوست می‌دارم. تو هرگز نگفتم من، تو را من دوست می‌دارم، تو هم اصلا نپرسیدی نخواندی از نگاهم راز چشمانم، ندیدی سایه های ماتم دوران هجران را به روی چهره زرد تبالودم. گذشت آن روز شیرین هم، ولی امروز و فردا روز و فرداهای دیگر به تو هرگز نخواهم گفت تو را من دوست می‌دارم. Thank you. Thank you, Babajo. Thank you. The next one is an old song of Marzieh, an Iranian old singer who is not with us anymore. The name of the song is Ashk Man Hoveyda Sho. The lyrics are by Turaj Negahban, and the melody is by Mr. Humayun Khurram. None of them are living right now. So here we are. اشک من هویدا شد دیدم چو دریا شد در میان اشک من سایه تو پیدا شد موج آتشی از غم زان میانه برپا شد اشک من هویدا شد دیدم چو دریا شد تو برفتی وفا نکرده نگهی سوی ما نکرده نکند ای امید جانم که نیایی خدا نکرده به یاری شکستگان چرا نیایی چه بی وفا چه بی وفا چه بی وفایی به یاری شکستگان چرا نیایی چه بی وفا چه بی وفا چه بی وفایی اشک من هویدا شد دیدم چو دریا شد چرا برم نمانده رفتی به موج غم نشانده رفتی به موج غم نشانده رفتی تو که گفتی اگر به آتشم کشی مگر ز غصه ام کشی تو را رها نمی کنم من تو که گفتی اگر به آتشم کشی مگر ز غصه ام کشی تو را رها نمی کنم من نکشتم تو را ز غم نه آتشت به جان زدم که می کشی ز من تو دامن اشک من هویدا شد دیده ام چو دریا شد در میان اشک من سایه تو پیدا شد موج آتشی از غم زان میانه برپا شد. مرسی مرسی بابا جان مرسی. Thank you so much, friends, for being here and listening to this. I need to introduce our next performer to you. I don't have an official bio, but I know her since she was just a little girl. She grew up in a family of musicians. Actually, her whole tribe are musicians and singers, well known in the whole world. So happy to have her here. She sings and she plays piano and she never says no to us. We are so grateful to have such performers who graciously, every time we asked them to cooperate, they did. And this is Irfan Aghdasi. Is coming to us via Zoom, via Canada. Irfan, please take over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Siminjan. Thank you. I don't deserve all those words you said about me.
You do.
Thank you so much again for inviting me. The last conference I attended was last year at Bluebonnet conference, and such a good memories there. As I remembered Mr. Aghdasi, who played piano. He's amazing, and unfortunately Zoom doesn't let performers.
Exactly.
It's not very friendly with performers, let's put it that way. But thank you so much. I have chosen a song to sing for you, which we're gonna share the video I sent to Farishjan to share. It's called Negah Abdu'l-Bahá, the look of Abdu'l-Bahá. And the music is from ABDU'L-BAHA, and the lyrics are from Muhammad Baha'u'ddin Abdi. The music arrangement is from my cousin Hossein Pakravan, and the violin in there is from Barghabadi, that I hope you enjoy.
I told you from a whole tribe of musicians. Here she is.
Thank you.
در نگاه نافذ عبدالبها، آن نگاه مهربان و آشنا، چیست این رازی که در اعماق آن می کند اسرار خلقت را بیان؟ عبدالبها، 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 چون سرشک حاله ای در ماهتاب، یا فروغ شعله ای در موج آب، اشک دل بر آتش غم ریخته، آب و آتش را به هم آمیخته. در نگاهش گویی از مهر و خطا، آشیان کرده کبوتر با عقاب، یا شده در آن نگاه آتشی شیر ماهوی صحرا هم نشین، در صلابت چون خروش آبشار، در لطافت چون نوای جویبار، از مه رخشان خیال انگیزتر، ذاتش هجران شرر آمیزتر. عبدالبها، گاه بینی آن نگاه بی مثیل، موج آرام است بر دریای نیل، گاه چون شط فرات آید به جوش، در غریو موج تندی پرخروش. راز هستی بین کز آن سر خدای، بازیابی در نگاهی جان فزای. آتشی در آن نگه افروخته، کز شرارش عالمی را سوخته. کی توان شرح نگاهش باز گفت، یا ز اشک دیده مروارید سفت. لیک آن یاری که خود دلدار ماست، آن که در رنج و تعب غمخوار ماست در نگاه او غمی باشد نهان ماورای وسعت یک آسمان آن غم عصیان نوع آدم است آن غم عصیان نوع آدم است چون به جان غمخوار اهل عالم است
Bravo, bravo. Thank you so much. So
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much, Irfan Jan.
فداتون بشه.
I know we can always count on you. Appreciate it. Dear
It's
friends,
a pleasure always.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dear friends, this concludes this portion. And Khotan Jan, are you there?
I
Go
am
ahead.
here.
You're
Vale.
it. You're it.
Thank you. I was just enjoying that so much. My goodness. Whew, thank you. Khanim Aqdasi, so grateful to you. So grateful to Simin John, Babak John. Wow, that really was so touching and moving and elevating. It's just so beautiful. Thank you very much. We needed that shot in the heart and arm and spirit. It's in the afternoon. We've been sitting. And I know wherever you are, whether it's morning or evening, we've been sitting for a couple hours. So thank you for everyone for participating. Thank you, Dr. Khadim, for your amazing talk. Everything was just so beautiful and illuminated. And we're going to take a couple hours off. We'll be back. So a little siesta, if you need it, a little chai or coffee or cake, and think of us as we all take a short break, and then we'll be back at 5:30 Central Standard Time to start connecting with each other. And then at 6 p.m. we start. And you know the drill by now. We're going to have devotions, and then we will have a talk, this time by Mr. Bill Fernandez. And he's going to talk about the example of Abdu'l-Bahá. What a way to end the evening. And then we have some special music, Simin John. Isn't that right? And we have, who's coming tonight?
Yes, we do. We are going to have, of course, Mr. Van Gilmer from Chicago.
Ooh.
And then Sam Venus will play again some guitar for us.
My goodness, another amazing performance by our dear Sam, and of course Van Gilmer. We've known him for so long and love him for so long. So wonderful way to end the conference. So dear friends, as we say in Texas, you all come back now. So 2 hours or an hour and a half, and you all come right back. Faris John, last word. You get the last word.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Irfan. She's actually my cousin. So I'm proud to say that. But she did perform for us on a 24-hour notice, which I'm really appreciative of that. Thank you, Irfan, for doing this. We really appreciate that.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. So are you going to share your cousins with us, Faris John? Is she your cousin and therefore our cousin?
No, it's only mine.
Oh, this can only go so far. Wonderful. And there is a question in chat about the time. It is, we're going to get together again, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. I believe that's 7 p.m. for Eastern Standard Time, and then it's going to be 4 for California West Coast time. Am I right in that? There's some questions about that in chat. So please check on that, but it is 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll see you here in an hour and a half. Thank you very much for this amazingly uplifting session. And as all of the presenters would attest, they can't do this without you all who are participating. Their hearts are connected to you. Their energies are connected. They're connecting and participating with you. So we've all co-created this amazing session. So thank you. And then we'll be back again in an hour and a half. Allah Abha. See you soon.
Thank you, Jena Khanum, again. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. And Simin John and Babak John and Khotan John, everybody. Thank you so much.
And our technicians, oh my God, the wizards behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Arid, Aghay Hamid Khan, Aghay Ali Khan, my God, Mr. Jabari, unbelievable. So
yes,
thank you.
Truly. I would be totally lost without them.
We all would, my goodness. Thank you. See you all soon.
و پریسا میگه اگه کنسلشن هم گرفتید ignore it go get the vaccine میدن میگم که has anybody گفتم پریس نرفته